I would like to show you today the most beautiful monsters I've ever seen. In fact, they are so extremely small that it's almost impossible to see them. And I was using a scanning electron microscope to make them visible for you. But to start, I would like to show you something you are all familiar with, just to give you an idea about the dimension we are going to travel. This is the leaf of a peppermint, and it's full of glands that contain the refreshing substances we all like so much. Over millions of years, nature has evolved such a great diversity in animals and plants and their structures. For example, rose petals have self-cleaning properties, and they remain virtually dust-free. Or the leaf of a porcupine tomato that is native to the higher altitudes in the Andes has thousands of hairs as a protection from cold at night or too much sunlight at day. And it looks like a jungle from a different planet. Some plants look like architecture. This, for example, is the slippery surface of a pitcher plant. And also outside the kingdom of plants, you can find beautifully ornamented structures under high magnification. This is a marine diatom from Japan. And also much more ordinary objects, like for example the egg of a mosquito, reveal beautiful patterns under high magnification. This pattern enables the mosquito egg to swim. And sometimes in the microcosm, you can even stumble upon abstract art. These are the mouth parts of a mosquito larvae. And even at the dimension of bacteria, there are astonishing things that remain hidden from our eyes. And with the technology I'm using, you can also look inside your own body. These are my blood cells entangled in fibrin network. And this is a delicate dendritic cell that is so important for our immune system. So I'm a trained molecular biologist, and to me it seems that nature has created the richest forms at very small size. On the other hand, humans tend to ignore small things. And to be honest, we often fear what we don't know. But more often than not, there is no reason for that. And I would like to demonstrate that by showing you what is perhaps the most disliked group of animals on the planet. And I'm talking about mites. And I wouldn't be surprised if your first gut reaction is disgust, dislike, skepticism, or even fear. So let's dive right into it and look at the facts. If we zoom in to the full stop at the end of the title and enlarge it, and compare it with the largest mite I have found in more than 10 years, you can see that the mite is really small. In fact, mites are smaller than a full stop in the newspapers. But if you magnify them, they look stunning. This is Hydrachna. It's a water mite. It has elongated hairs at the rear legs, and it's a good swimmer. It feeds on insect eggs, and it's totally harmless. If I wouldn't show you the picture today, you would probably never even realize that this creature exists. And the kingdom of mites is very diverse, and some of the representatives I find really cute. This is a box mite. It looks like a turtle, and when threatened, it retracts its 8 legs and even snapshots the lid. With closed body armor, it looks like this. And I guess it must taste delicious. Otherwise, why in the world would this creature develop such a remarkable way of self-defense? Some of the box mites have a clean body. Others cover themselves with a thin layer of soil as a tactile and visual camouflage to increase the chance that the nearby predator just moves on without detecting its favorite food. This is a water mite from Canada. You can find mites in almost all lakes or ponds or puddles, and often in hundreds or thousands per cubic meter. They can even live in drinking water. And until the experts sent me this beautiful animal, I didn't even know that a mite can survive underwater. There are so many surprises in the kingdom of mites. For example, the supersized foot pads of these feather mites that helps the animal to attach to bird feathers. And this blind animal has also developed elongated hair at the rear end to navigate and eventually find a partner to mate. And some mites have developed interesting mouth parts. This one I personally call the Swiss Army knife mite. Because it has so many tools in its mouth. Let's have a look. You can see fine pincers. You can see a pair of strong bolt cutters. You can find tiny limbs to handle food, beautifully carved injection tools, and ultra-thin brushes. We just don't know much about the function of these tools. We don't even know how many mites exist in the world. Probably more than 1 million, but only less than 50,000 are scientifically described. It's because they are so small and they constantly fly below the radar. We only notice mites when they either bite us, when they steal our food, or when they attack our favorite plant at home. And of course, this has led to an extremely bad reputation for mites, without taking into account that maybe only 2 or 3% of all mites live a parasitic life. This was a soil mite. This is another larger soil mite, and you can see a time-lapse sequence of the coloration. In fact, the scanning electron microscope doesn't allow me to capture images with real colors, so I'm manually coloring every picture at high resolution down to the smallest detail. It's a very time-consuming work, and it allows me only to produce between 10 to 20 images a year. That's how time-consuming it is. But the colors are critical for my work, and they let these creatures become alive again, and they also help me to select patterns that I find beautiful or scientifically interesting facts that I would like to show. And of course, they show you just how much I care about these tiny critters. Because they are much more than the bee-killing varroa mite, or maybe the dust mite that causes allergies, or maybe even the itch mite that lives inside of our skin, but has become very rare in modern human populations. And of course, these are nasty creatures, but let me assure you, nature is really cool, and it has evolved the so-called superparasites. And they prey on parasitic mites wherever their food is abundant. And look at that beast. Isn't that sweet revenge? It's really astonishing what evolution is able to do. This moss mite has developed small, colorful, water-repellent beads as a protection from too much moisture. And in some feather mites, even gentleman males have evolved that are protecting juvenile females underneath their body. It is no exaggeration to say that mites change the world, because they make soil turn over much faster or slower. They increase or decrease decomposition speed. And they can make crops grow healthy or sick. So let me finish the series on mites with the coolest and by far smallest species I have found so far. It's a tiny scuterid, and it reminds me on a remote-controlled vacuum cleaner. It's just passively riding on small mites in the soil or other creatures without affecting their life. It's like a blind passenger at the smallest possible size you can imagine. But believe it or not, even this creature has its own blind passengers, because we all do. This is a sample of belly button bacteria from a female student of the North Carolina University. And you can find, the study reveals that everybody at least has 67 different species of bacteria on the belly button region. And you can find many more bacteria and microbes if you look at other places. For example, human lips. This is the microbiome of a kiss. And the bacteria might even be the reason why we kiss. And these are human feces, and they are full of bacteria. In fact, you could even say that the human being is at the same time an individual and an ecosystem, because we have so many different organisms in different places. And there shouldn't be much fear about this view of life, just because they are too small to be seen and we don't know much about them, because it's fascinating. So, my aim today was to show you the world with different eyes and to let you see past your preconceptions. And I hope it worked. Thank you very much, and thanks to the institutions that are supporting my work.